watching the debate for New York's 18th Congressional District.
And welcome back to Debate Night in New York. Let's get right back into the questions. We're going to begin this second half hour with a discussion of abortion. For this specific topic, you will each get rebuttal time after some main questions. So just hold till the end. I promise I'm coming. Mr. Ryan, beginning with you. You have said you are in favor of restoring the protections of Roe versus Wade, but this would not be easy to accomplish. Democrats would need the House. They'd need to overcome the filibuster in the Senate. They'd need a president to sign the bill. So are you being realistic when you tell voters, vote for us, and we'll get this done? 60 seconds.
Not only is is it realistic, it's necessary. I mean, this is a country, I risk my life in combat for freedoms for fellow Americans. We now have future generations with less freedoms, especially women in this country, with less freedoms, reproductive freedom than the women who came before them. To be very clear, this decision, this personal health care decision, should be between a woman and her doctor, not anyone, any politician, certainly anyone in Washington. The Women's Health Protection Act, which I proudly co-sponsor, would codify those protections, which have been in place for 50 years due to the Roe decision and are widely supported and agreed upon by the American public. So with that much public support, I think we can and must get it passed. And unfortunately, I think you're going to hear from my opponent an incredibly extreme and out-of-touch view of this that is not about freedom, but it's actually about taking away freedom from many, many Americans.
And Ms. Esposito, let's focus your question here with a radio interview you did late last year. You said the Supreme Court was correct when it overturned Roe versus Wade in the Dobbs decision. Let's take a listen.
I believe the Supreme Court did the absolute right thing and returned it to the states. Governing in New York may not be the same as governing in another state. It was returned properly to the state.
New York law allows abortions for up to 24 weeks and then exceptions for the health of the mother afterwards. So to be clear, if elected to Congress, would you vote in favor of any federal law that would restrict the current 24-week rights of New York women? 60 seconds.
So unfortunately, Pat Ryan lacks the integrity to tell the voters the truth. And he would love to make this entire election about abortion. So I'm going to be very clear with the voters. I do not advocate for, nor would I vote for a federal abortion ban. It is a states' rights issue, and in New York, it has been decided, and access to abortion is already codified into law. Now, of course, rape, incest, life of the mother are all absolute exceptions when you're talking about abortion. But what I advocate for is access to contraceptives. As a member of the gay community, I access to IVF and greater expansion of adoption. Most of my friends, a lot of my friends, were able to experience the joy of parenthood because of IVF. We have to secure that. But we also have to give women the resources, the mental health, the emotional, the financial resources, child tax credits to be able to choose life. No one should ever feel abortion is their only option. Mr.
Ryan, I'll give you a chance to respond, but Ms. Esposito, you didn't quite get to the question. I'll give you an additional 15 seconds. As a federal lawmaker, would you ever vote to restrict the 24-week rights of New York women?
No, I will not vote for a federal abortion ban. That is not on the ballot in this election. New York's rights are codified, and I am not voting for a federal abortion ban.
Mr. Ryan, 30 seconds to respond.
She actually, again, didn't answer the question. I think that is really, really important. This is an existential issue because when the states have been given their rights, now in 20 states across this country, reproductive freedom has been ripped away. The Speaker of the House, who came to campaign for you, Alison, authored the national abortion bill. And most importantly, when you were running for lieutenant governor, a statewide office, you supported in writing a ban on abortion here in New York State, including in the cases of with no exceptions for rape or incest.
Thank you, Mr.
or the
Ryan.
life of a mother.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. And then you will, he had the first word on this. You will have the last word, 30 seconds.
That's absolutely untrue, what he's saying. So he would love, again, to make this about abortion. He would love to say that that women's freedom is only abortion. But what about a woman's freedom to walk safely to a park without becoming a victim of a crime because of his pro-criminal policies? What about a girl's ability to play safely safely on a field or be safe in her locker room without a biological male there? What about a mother who's going to send her kid to a party and worry about being overdosed by fentanyl because of his sanctuary policies?
Yeah.
This is what's on the ballot, not abortion.
Mr. Ryan, responding to the other things aside from abortion, 30 seconds.
A litany of mistruths, but I do think it's important. In writing, Alison, you supported the life at conception legislation, which would, to be clear, in New York State, ban abortion even in the cases of rape and incest.
I have never said that.
And threats to life of the mother. So did you not know that, or did you change your position?
I have never, ever advocated.
Ms. Esposito, 30 seconds, and then to both of you, we're done after that.
I have never advocated for not looking at the exceptions of rape, incest, or life of the mother. I'm never going to tell a mother that she's going to orphan 2 children at home because she has to go forward with a birth. That is absolutely untrue. Abortion is not on the ballot. It is safe in New York. I am not voting for a federal abortion ban. I do not condone it. I want to empower and support women and babies through all stages of pregnancy and give them any option they can to choose life and make a very difficult decision.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. We're going to move to the topic of guns, and I know this is a topic you both truly understand because of your respective military and police experiences. Beginning with you, Ms. Esposito, should an assault weapons ban like the one that weapons were used to target former President Trump in 2 would-be assassination attempts and used in many, many school shootings, should they be banned?
No.
60 seconds.
No, you do not accomplish any rule or safety by taking guns out of legal, lawful people's hands. We have to punish criminals for their actions. It's not rocket science. We hold criminals accountable for their actions. Now, my opponent, who is a defund the police guy, who's marched with BLM, who has screamed or he defunded his own SWAT team, he calls weapons even in the hands of cops weapons of war, should know that there can be no weapon in my hand and anyone's going to get hurt. We have a heart problem in this country and a mental health problem in this country. We don't have a gun problem in this country. But when we do have criminals, we see even in New York City and beyond, the revolving door of justice due to bail reform laws and weak criminal justice system that apologizes for itself, that allows violent repeat offenders to prey on our innocent New Yorkers. I saw it firsthand in the city. Gang members arrested 2, 3, and 4 times with loaded illegal firearms, let back on the street with no accountability.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. 2, I will let you respond, Mr. Ryan, but 2 quick 15-second follow-ups to sort of button up your position here on guns. Should bump stocks, which turn rifles into automatic weapons, be banned? Quick answer, please.
Again, we're targeting a weapon and not the individual. We need to be targeting the individual that perpetrates these crimes and hold them accountable. What about extended magazine clips greater than 10 rounds? Again, the same thing. I have an extended magazine greater than 10 rounds. No one is getting hurt. That is not my position. We do not remove a Second Amendment right from our citizens simply because someone else committed a crime. Thank you, Ms. Esposito. Mr. Ryan, on the topic of an assault weapons ban, your thoughts on that for 60 seconds, sir, and your chance to respond as well. I'm sure all the folks at the NRA were very happy with that answer and are going to keep funding money into your campaign. But for the people in my district, myself included, who drops my kids off at school who are 5 and 2 years old, the idea that the same weapons, I know these weapons, I carry them in combat for 27 months. I was qualified expert on the M4 assault rifle. I know how to clean, assemble, disassemble, store safely this weapon. I've seen it, and I'm sure you have too, Alison, tragically, rip through human flesh. It's designed to tumble the rounds within the human body and do as much damage to human flesh as possible. These are weapons of war, and they should not be on our street. We absolutely should put back in place an assault weapons ban. And we saw this from 1994 to 2004 when we had one in this country. It dramatically brought down violent gun deaths and saved lives. We also should ban bump stocks. We also should limit high-capacity magazine rounds. Well, I let you go past the time because you answered my 2 follow-up questions. We're going to go ahead and move on. Mr. Ryan, this question is just for you. You made national headlines when you became the first Democratic member of Congress in New York to call for President Joe Biden to drop his re-election bid, which of course he did. And that followed some concerns about his mental acuity. So the question is, why is he not qualified to run for another 4 years but still qualified to be president? 60 seconds. This was a decision that I made after
a lot of thought, really reflecting, hearing from my constituents that there were concerns about not the president's ability to do the job. I have not and do not question that. I think the concern was with the existential threat that Trump poses to our democracy, to our safety, to our affordability, and to our freedom, we needed the absolute best person to prosecute that case against him, literally, because he is now a convicted felon. And I felt and still feel Joe Biden wasn't the strongest person to do that. And it's pretty rare to, as a freshman member of the House, stand up against a sitting president of your own party. To me, that was a patriotic responsibility to protect and save our democracy, and I'm proud that I did that.
Mr. Ryan, thank you. Ms. Esposito, an individualized question for you as well. And it's about your time in the NYPD. Politico has reported that you were blamed for not properly safeguarding your firearm after your car was broken into, and City and State had reported that New York City paid $120,000 to settle police misconduct allegations against you. You've repeatedly touted your law enforcement record. You've mentioned it several times this evening. What do you have to say to voters who see this reporting but have concerns? 60 seconds.
I am incredibly proud of my record. In 25 years, I had no founded complaints filed against me, and there were 2 frivolous lawsuits. One where an individual, a 16-year-old woman, decided she was going to stop me from arresting her drug-dealing, gang-banging boyfriend who had just shot a man 3 times by punching me in the head and scratching down my neck. So yes, she was arrested. And due to bail reform laws and weak prosecution, you know, they don't always get prosecuted, and frivolous lawsuits ensue. But I stand by my record as a law enforcement officer. I stand behind my members of service and my history. But what I will say is Congressman Ryan's calling for Joe Biden to step down was because he saw that he was going to lose an election. It had nothing to do with patriotism. He was afraid to lose his position, so he called for Joe Biden to step down and 14 million Democrat voters to be usurped and someone else to be placed in.
Mr. Ryan, I see you want to respond. We are actually going to get into a section on presidential politics, so I think you'll have an opportunity to get your word in here. The next first question does go to you, Ms. Esposito, though. Excuse me. You've been endorsed by former President Donald Trump, and he has endorsed you, of course. The former president is a convicted felon. Mr. Ryan just mentioned that, and he does face additional criminal charges at the state and federal level, both tied to election interference. You've made a career out of arresting bad guys. We were just talking about this. Do you not have any reservations about supporting a candidate who is a convicted felon and facing further prosecution? 60 seconds.
So I think the American public can see through this, that these are political prosecutions aimed at a president. We have a zealous district attorney in New York City that's going after the president by trumping up charges, forgive the pun, to make sure that they can call him a convicted felon, and when he's failing to actually prosecute criminals in his own city. Again, I stand by my record of the NYPD, and I believe that we need to be holding criminals accountable for their actions, but we also shouldn't be attacking our political opponents using the criminal justice system. That is unacceptable in this country, and it shouldn't be any manner of force where we go from here.
Mr. Ryan, I want to drive the conversation forward, and now you will have a chance to respond, but I do want to ask you about Vice President Harris specifically. She's notably changed some of her positions. She once favored a ban on fracking, favored Medicare for all, favored shifting resources away from police, and she's changed all that. Has she compromised too much? 60 seconds for that and all the rest, please.
If we can, I do want to try to come back also to the point about Alison's weapon not being secured. I think that's an important point that she didn't address. But to the heart of your question, I certainly don't agree with everything that Vice President Harris has said and still stands for. I have been and will continue to be an independent representative. You saw it in that headline you showed, moderate Democrat who is aligned with representing my community and my country. I've called out on a few issues the President of the United States, a member of my own party. I've pressed hard and called on our governor, a Democrat, when I disagreed with her on several issues. If it's about fighting to protect and take care of and make my community more free, I will speak truth to power regardless. And I would ask Alison, is there anything that your candidate specifically, that you would disagree with President Trump, former President Trump.
Ms. Esposito, I will give you 30 seconds to respond directly.
So
to
again,
that.
he didn't acknowledge any of Kamala Harris's failed policies. It's absolutely ridiculous. She is saying whatever she can to win an election, much like Congressman Ryan is doing right now. You know, she is a Green New Deal. So is Pat Ryan. He wants to kill American energy, and he's okay with spending billions of dollars overseas to our adversaries that are supporting terrorism and stockading their weapons pile and screaming death to America. These are unacceptable policies. And he has voted in lockstep with the Biden-Harris administration for these poor policies.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. Mr. Ryan, now you get 30 seconds to respond.
It's not a presidential debate, and our job is to serve and represent our constituents, our district. And I actually think, especially in the hyper-partisan moment that we're in, the willingness to stand up against one's party, which I've done on securing our border, which I've done on congestion pricing, which was incredibly punishing to many of the working class and middle class people, including, and I appreciate your service, Alison. I meant to say that earlier, protecting our city and our state. We have to stand up for folks like that, even against our own party.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Esposito, we're continuing on with presidential politics for a moment longer, so you'll have a word here. But I do think there's a question that most candidates are being asked this election cycle. The first vote of the next Congress will be to certify the presidential election on January 6th of next year. We all know what happened in January of 2021. Mr. Ryan, would you certify the results even if former President Trump is declared the winner? Up to 60 seconds to respond.
Absolutely. This is at the heart of what holds our democracy together, has held it together. It's the reason one of the many reasons I'm so proud of our country, that we've been through a lot of ups and downs, but always, until January 6th of 2021, the peaceful transfer of power, putting country above party and self, was successful because of the people. It was such a dark and damaging moment, and it honestly, it pissed me off as someone that put my life on the line for this country, that President Trump did that, and that those traitorous individuals did that. And I'm glad they're being held accountable, and he should never be anywhere near President Trump, ever near the White House again. He is unfit for office.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Esposito, would you vote, if elected, to certify the results even if Vice President Harris wins? Up to 60 seconds.
Yes, of course. I believe in the peaceful transition of power. But getting back to that former point, if you want to work in a bipartisan way and put your district first, and you want to say that you called for border security, you had the ability to vote on H.R. 2 to immediately secure our border, and you failed to do so. That is now sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk, and if you really cared about securing the border, you would call on Chuck Schumer to bring that to a vote. That has already passed the House. Again, Pat Ryan is trying to secure his position without doing what's best for the people that he represents.
Mr. Ryan, if you'd like 30 seconds to directly respond, or we can move on. I know you've answered some of this, sir.
I think that's up to voters to decide.
Let's move on. The representative for New York 18 has the high honor of directly representing the West Point community. The Army just met its recruiting goals for the first time in 10 years, but other service branches have not, and the military as a whole has clearly struggled with recruiting in recent years. Ms. Esposito, why do you think the military is having such a hard time landing recruits? 60 seconds.
Well, West Point is an amazing place. My brother-in-law is a graduate. I know Pat is a graduate. I have the utmost respect for our troops and our service members and those who go through West Point. But the problem is in our military now, there are woke policies that are pushing a progressive agenda that are not allowing our military to meet its goals. And we need to do everything we can to make sure that American patriots feel the calling to represent our country, the calling to serve. I have the utmost gratitude for those who raise their right hand, put on that uniform, and put themselves in harm's way to secure the freedoms we have in this country. And we have to do more to support them. And that's not by pushing political or progressive agendas down their throat. It's not by social agendas. It's by backing our military and making sure that they have the equipment and the resources and the funding that they need to accomplish the peace through strength position we have.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. Mr. Ryan, why do you believe the military is having such a tough time getting recruits right now? 60 seconds.
This is something very personal to me, not only because of my own service, and I'm so damn proud to represent my alma mater at West Point. Those cadets, the staff and faculty, it's such a special place, and every time I go there and hang out with those young people, I feel better about our country. That is the spirit that we need to spread across this country to boost and encourage recruiting. And I want to credit General George, the Chief of Staff of the Army, a fellow West Point grad, for hitting those numbers this year. And we've been working really hard, not by throwing around terms like woke, which no one that I've met yet can define for me, but actually doing the work. For example, in this year's defense bill, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, we finally increased enlisted member pay in the double digits percentage, paying our people correctly, increasing housing allowance, actually taking care of our troops. That is what we're doing, and that is going to continue to bring up those recruiting numbers. And I'm so proud of every single one of our men and women in uniform, and I just want to thank them directly, especially those in harm's way right now.
We're going to move on and talk about flooding. Many Orange County neighbors are still reeling from the deadly flooding of July of 2023. Homeowners have struggled to get the Federal Emergency Management Agency to cut them checks and help them rebuild. The agency is, of course, now dealing with Hurricane Milton, literally right now, and our thoughts are with the folks of Florida. It's about to make landfall as we speak. Plus, there's the devastation from Hurricane Helene across the South, of course. Meanwhile, the Secretary of Homeland Security says FEMA, the Disaster Relief Fund, is being depleted. We're going to begin with you, Mr. Ryan, this time. How do you fix FEMA while making sure New Yorkers are not forgotten?
This is something I've been incredibly frustrated. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this. I think it's total bull the way that FEMA responded to the storm in Orange County. They failed to meet the moment. I pushed them hard. I literally grilled the FEMA administrator in the Transportation Infrastructure Committee personally and said, you need to come to our district, look those folks in the eye who haven't got the relief that they need, and do right by them. I will continue to push to do that. We did thankfully get funding to solve a lot of the physical infrastructure damage. We reopened 213 going around Storm King. We got the Popolopen Bridge reopened, but we have to get that individual assistance under FEMA, and it's total BS that did not happen. And I also just want to say for those in Florida right now, we're praying for you guys, and 2 in a row here. It's just it's devastating. So God bless everybody down there.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. And unfortunately, you cannot say that word. We do have to apologize to folks at home for that one. We're going to move on to Ms. Esposito. How do you fix FEMA while making sure New Yorkers are not forgotten?
Again, we have to hold people accountable when they fail, and the Biden-Harris administration fails to do that. FEMA is not responding properly, and the people who are suffering in the South now, in North Carolina, in Florida, are seeing that firsthand. FEMA is being mismanaged, and the Biden-Harris administration has to take accountability for that. At one point, it was being reported because some of FEMA funds were directed to address the out-of-control border security problem, and were needed FEMA assistance to fund migrants that are here illegally. This is unacceptable. We have to put our people first. And now, down south, you're seeing people suffer. We had people suffer in our district that are being put by the wayside so that we can take care of people that shouldn't be in this country in the first place. And people have to be held accountable. People need to be fired when they're not doing their job properly. We need to make sure that FEMA is funded, but it's also being supervised and managed responsibly.
A quick response, if you could, Ms. Esposito. FEMA put out a statement on this saying the funds are kind of 2 different buckets. This is a different fund approved by Congress. Do you have some evidence behind what you're saying? It is.
There's 2 different buckets, but we're still spending money, and they're quicker to respond for things like that and less quick to respond to our own Americans. That's unacceptable. They do have billions that Congress allotted to them, and we have to make sure that they have more. But you see that the Biden-Harris administration can fund whatever projects that they want and forget our Americans.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. And you'll get the first question here. We're going to talk about Social Security because that will be running out of money in 2035, according to the Social Security Administration. At the same time, the national debt is around, I want to make sure I get the number right, $35 trillion and growing. Ms. Esposito, how do you fund or reform the program without increasing our ballooning debt? You have 60 seconds.
Out-of-control spending has been a problem in this country for the last 3.5+ years. But targeting our seniors who have paid into Social Security by removing any of their Social Security is unacceptable. Like I said, they paid into it. I don't believe there should be tax on Social Security. We owe our seniors. We have to take care of those who took care of us. But the out-of-control out-of-control spending and the Bidenomics in this country has to be reined in. It's not just Social Security. It's all of these other social programs, and it's the millions and billions of dollars now being funded on illegal immigrants when we had a secure border just 4 years ago. We must secure our border, and we must stop this out-of-control spending if Social Security is going to have a shot in the future. But we have to take care of our seniors now. Removing Social Security or any cuts to Social Security, I'm absolutely against, and it shouldn't be even a consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. Mr. Ryan, how do you fund or reform Social Security with an eye on the ballooning debt? 60 seconds.
Yeah, to be clear, I agree with my opponent. We cannot, must not cut Social Security. Unfortunately, I didn't hear a proposal to make sure it's funded. I actually authored a bill called the Protecting Social Security Act to make sure specifically that we do protect the solvency of the program, and that we do it by making billionaires and big corporations actually pay their fair share. That is what is inherent and core to my bill, and it's important to have an answer of how we'll keep it solvent going forward. I also think folks need to understand, in writing, both in the Project 2025 plan, 900+ pages of devastating policy, raising the retirement age is included. Privatizing Social Security is included. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who supports my opponent, wrote the bill to privatize Social Security. That's a dangerous, extreme agenda.
Well, we are out of time. Thank you for that answer, Mr. Ryan. Ms. Esposito, you will have the first 60-second closing statement because you went second during openings. The time is yours, 60 seconds.
Look, thank you for this spirited debate, but as you can see, there is a stark contrast between my opponent and I. We have a career politician that puts power before people and fails to do what's best for his district when it's politically expedient or he needs to do something to abide by his party. That is the problem with career politicians. I stepped away from my police force because the city, the state, and the country that I loved was turned upside down, and we have career politicians that are overtaxing, overregulating, and infringing upon our freedoms. That has to be prevented. I humbly ask the voters to consider me to fight for the people of the Hudson Valley and to continue to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I believe that this is not going to be a red wave. This will be a common sense wave, a red, white, and blue wave. This is Republicans, independents, and Democrats alike standing up and saying enough is enough. We are coming for our country back on November 5th. We'll do it together, concentrating on what unites us rather than what divides us.
Thank you, Ms. Esposito. Mr. Ryan, your 60-second closing statement, sir.
I want to thank you again, Henry, Allison. I really appreciated this. I think we need more of this in our country. And look, we need more people who have worn the uniform and put their life on the line for our community, for our country. The longest job I've held was as an Army officer. Now I'm trying to continue my service here to my community and my country. It has been such a tremendous honor to represent the community where I was born and raised, where I graduated high school at Kingston High School, proudly graduated West Point, where my wife Rebecca and I are now raising 5-year-old Theo, 2-year-old Cam. I mean, it is an awesome, awesome community that I'm so proud of. But we have serious needs. And my mission, if I'm fortunate enough to continue to serve this community, make our community more affordable, make our community more safe, make our community more free. And I would be so humbled and honored to continue to serve this community.
And that concludes our debate. I want to thank both of you personally and on behalf of PIX11 for participating. And thank you to everyone at home for watching. But before we go, let's check in with Grace Gomez ahead of our post-debate show. Hi, Grace.
Henry, our debate night in New York post show is coming right up. You can watch it on PIX11 Plus and PIX11.com. And of course, we'll talk about all those big moments. And I'll have a political expert with me. So we'll see you then.
Thank you, Grace. And by the way, Hudson Valley, we're not done helping you decide this November the candidates for New York's 17th Congressional District. That'd be Congressman Mike Lawler and former Congressman Mondaire Jones will debate right here in our studios November 1st at 7 p.m. Remember, Election Day is November 5th. For now, I'm Henry Rossoff. Good night.
I think it would be on a Wednesday. Yeah.